Hello, and thank you for joining us for another video here at Battle Turtle. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Today we're going to be talking about the A&K M1892 Winchester lever action gas airsoft gun. See right here before us, we have the actual model with the wood stock. What I'm going to do is go over some of the pros and cons of the gun itself. I haven't had that long. I'm actually just trying it out right now. And I'm probably going to have another video with some target practice at another date. The problem I have right now, it is freezing cold. I mean, I'm not kidding. It has been below freezing every day. And that's not very good for a gas gun. When I first got it, I took it home. I got it home. I was sitting there. I tested out a little bit and I sat in my garage overnight and I tested it again, and then the FPS on the thing was abysmal, and the range was terrible. It's only because the gun was freezing. I mean, you couldn't touch the barrel. It was very cold. So there's not very good as far as trying out the range and the accuracy right now. I've had to leave it in the house and warm it up over most of a day, and then I had to shoot out my back door into the yard and into the land behind our house just to get a good idea of the range and accuracy. But I didn't get to do a target because I just couldn't do it outside for too long because the gas wouldn't hold up and the FPS would be too bad. So it wasn't very conducive for a accuracy test. But I did get some good range testing, and as far as range, it actually isn't that bad. It's about your average sniper rifle or DMR rifle. I was able to get about between 70-75 yards thereabouts, maybe up to 100. I mean, I couldn't see sometimes the BB I lost track of it. So it is good chance it does have really good range. But again, this is not a cold weather gun. One option I did see online for those who might want to use this in a colder weather, someone suggested using those heat packets, the ones used for hand for like going out in the cold weather for hunting and that, and just maybe taping them to the gas chamber over here. And what that'll do is it'll hopefully warm up the gas chamber, keep the gas warm in the gun, so it keeps your FPS a little more consistent in the cold weather. I haven't tried it out yet. It's something I'm probably tempted to do over maybe the next couple of weeks, just get a chance to go out there and see if it does make a difference or not. We'll find out, and if so, then I'll add it to the video or a second video with the target practice, and we'll see how it goes. Now, the gun itself came in this actually really nice box. It was a big improvement from the early models. You can see it's pretty fancy. Of course, it's just a box. I mean, there's not much to it, but it is. They heavily stepped up their shipping. And inside came with the gun, a screwdriver, a couple Allen keys, of course your standard bag of BBs, a unjamming cleaning rod, and a pamphlet with all the different models of A&K guns that it makes. Didn't have too much information on the breakup of the gun itself. Like usually they have like a little schematic in the back. It shows you how it breaks up, all different parts. But it did a lot of advertising about different guns and how to properly use your gun. And it also came with the loader and the ramrod for the loader. The loader does disassemble. You can actually put them in there. The back comes off as well. And you stick it into the loading port on the side where you're normally on a regular Winchester, your cartridge would go. And you load it, pushing the ramrod in. It's fairly simple. The only problem is if you lose this, you're kind of SOL. So I'm also going to do is probably over the winter here, I'm going to try to maybe get a piece of plastic and shape it down to be this rough design, drill it out, and try to fix it to a hand speed loader with a tube, so it'll make it easier just to shove it in, hit the lever a few times, the speed loader, pull it out, and have the gun fully loaded, and less chance of worrying about losing one of these two. Of course, this is always replaced with a simple piece of plastic or a stick or anything to get your hands on. This not so easy, so I'm going to try and copy this as well to make the design to be able to fit inside the gun. A piece of plastic would be pretty easy to come by. It's just be shaping it down will be a pain in the butt, but I do have all winter to do that. The gun itself is actually quite impressive, and it does have a lot of weight. This is again the wood version, so it's going to weigh a little more than the plastic. It is all die-cast metal. The entire thing, except for the stock, is die-cast metal on both sides. The action is very realistic. As you can see, it'll actually throw the loading block back, the hammer back. It opens up the ejection port and fires. And this is a great thing about this rifle. If you load it with a round and you don't plan on firing it, you put your thumb on the hammer, pull it back, just like the real one, pull the trigger and ease the hammer down. If you want to fire it again, Just got to pull the hammer back and pull the trigger, and it'll go off. So it is a nice little convenient. It's an old version of a safety, as we call it today. The rear sight is over here. It's a standard dovetail sight. It rises up and has different elevations. I try to keep it somewhere around the bottom third for longer range shots. It also interesting about this sight is that it moves a little left and right, which is good for some windage adjustments, which most airsoft guns do not have. And of course in the front you have your standard sight on the front, standard metal sight. Nothing particularly great, nothing wonderful. I mean, this is not a gun you're going to put a whole bunch of fancy rails on with all sorts of red dots and lights and scopes and that. I mean, I know they do make a rail you can put on, especially on the stock over here from the real gun, and I'm sure it could fit on here, and you can put a mount as well into the actual frame of the gun if you find somebody who can tap it and drill it out and put an attachment there. But it's fine the way it is, and you get a lot of practice. You can do fine with just the regular sights on the gun itself. I had no problem following the BBs, as I said, up to about 70-75 yards, and it was far surpassing the range of most of my guns, which is what I was hoping for, was the good range. And you had to adjust the accuracy here and there, and again, as it gets warmer, I'll be able to do that a little better. In the gun too, here in the injection port is where the hop-up is. It's actually right here. So to get it, you actually don't even have to open it all the way. You just got to open it a little bit, and it'll give you access to the hop-up right there, so you make your adjustments. Don't put a hop-up on too high. This is something I realized yesterday when playing with the gun. Is when the hop-up was on too high, it wasn't shooting. It was feeding the BBs, but it wasn't shooting them. Actually, I had to do it twice. It had to double feed them. It would shoot 2 BBs off at once. Of course, you get no range with that at all. So you got to turn the hop-up down. If you're getting that problem, turn the hop-up down a little bit, and it'll shoot down. It'll shoot fine as well. But you will need some adjustment depending on your BBs that you use. The wood is actually, it's pretty solid. It's going to be that Chinese wood they use. It's probably going to scratch and dent a little easy, but it is still a step up from the plastic, at least in my personal opinion. The only problem with the wood, it's a little rough. The color's wrong. Probably over winter, I'm going to sand it down, get a deeper color to the wood, make it look a little nicer. And it definitely is sanding. It's a little rough here on some of the edges. They just rough cut the gun stock and they threw it on. So it has a few problems here and there. So I'm probably going to take it off, smooth it out, get a deeper color, make it look a little nicer. Though I do actually like the lighter color, surprisingly. I know most people don't. So I may leave the lighter color and just sand these little bad edges off, make it a little smoother and nicer. The butt plate is metal. It's actually brass coated. They did the same thing with the stock. It has a few little gaps along the edges here that a regular one wouldn't have because the craftsmanship would be a little better. But for what it is, an airsoft gun, a toy gun, it actually still looks pretty good. I'm sure if I were to take this down, you can see all the grain here in the wood. Just sand it down, maybe put some linseed oil, boiled linseed oil on it to protect it and probably bring out its nice natural color. It might look a little better than this. I might look the same color, it might look better, but I'm not sure what they treated this with, if anything at all. So we'll find out when I play with it a little bit more. Doors does have the orange tip. Plastic this time. It's not painted on like the original ones. It shouldn't be too hard to remove if you'd like to. And in the front here is where the gas is loaded. You just got to take it, twist it, and pull it out, and the gas is loaded right in there. I know there's a lot of reports of issues with leaking. This is supposed to be the new model. This is from evic.com. This is the new model, better seals. Now I did notice when I loaded the gas initially, I'm using the propane with the adapter, that it did have a problem with it leaking out the front. It actually leaked for some time, and then it stopped and hasn't leaked since. So it might be because it's a new gun, it might not. It's pretty easy to access. You have the front one that I mentioned right here, which is your loading valve, your gas valve, and then you have actually 4 other seals on the inside here that you will have to eventually probably replace or lubricate. And most people think you have to take the whole gun apart to get to it. No, there's actually a great video out there of a gentleman who shows how to replace the trigger piece in here that generally breaks, that releases the hammer. he also takes the stock off and shows you how to remove the barrel section where you can get to the seals in the back over here without having to take the whole gun apart, and which is good to know. And it's pretty simple. It's only a couple of one screw here and a couple on the inside, and this whole barrel assembly comes out, and you can get to the seals that are on the inside in here, which most people complain at a leak and they can't seem to get to. It's right inside of the gun there. So it's pretty simple. If you get a chance to look it up, it's very informative, and it's a great way. I actually did help somebody on eBay who's selling these, and he said it was leaking in there. He couldn't fix it, so he didn't know what to do. And I contacted him. I said, you know, there's this price seal on there that needs to be done. So he took it apart, was able to fix it that day. He said he just lubricated the seals, and it stopped leaking. So now he's keeping his gun. He doesn't have to lose the gun, lose any money, because he apparently liked it, but he didn't know what to do. The loading port mentioned here is spring-loaded, and it will close automatically when you pull the speed loader out. What's interesting about the gun is when you load it, you notice it'll come back. Now if you go to here, this won't do anything, because you can close it again, you think it's loaded, you fire, nothing will come out. The problem is you have to push the gun, the lever, all the way forward. It allows this little ramp in here to bring the BB up in line with the chamber, which then gets pushed into place. So if you're doing this real quick, your gun's not loading. All the way forward, all the way back. It's the only way you're going to get it to work properly. I would not recommend doing that silly movie thing where they take the gun and they flick it down with one arm and they pull it back up and shoot. Remember, this is die-cast metal. It's not steel. Yeah, it's going to be stronger than most of the metals that they use. Most of the items actually just stronger than plastic, and some metals used in airsoft guns. It's going to be tougher. It's going to hold up better. But it's not meant for that kind of abuse. Even real guns have problems with it. You know, it abuses the gun unnecessarily. Plus, it's really stupid and pointless. You're taking the gun out of both hands, you're flipping it down, taking it back in both hands. It said it's much easier to do it like this. And it's much more practical, makes more sense. So don't do that. You're going to end up breaking your gun or hurting your hands or both. Yeah, remember, these aren't real guns. I go back to the other video. I don't even abuse my real guns like that. So definitely don't abuse a toy gun like that, because you're not going to have it for very long. Just because it's metal doesn't mean it's indestructible. Okay, so just use your hands, be gentle, don't abuse it. Okay, so it's pretty simple. It's not rocket surgery. Okay, people. So on the side here is where they have a. As you can see, I have it over here right now. It'd be their saddle mount when they actually would have the gun on a horse. It would secure it on and keep it from falling out of your saddle, the saddle scabbard. The problem is, this one is never meant to hold weight, and I would not recommend you put a sling on it. I know some people say, oh, you just slack a sling onto the saddle mount. Don't do that. Okay, when I was actually, just today, I was looking at the saddle mount and just examining it, and it felt a little loose, so I moved it with my finger, and it fell off right in my hand. It's not broken, which is why I'm not upset about it. And I don't particularly care about the saddle mount anyway, for good reason, because listen, if you can hear it, it makes a jingling sound when you're walking around. Not really going to sneak up on anybody if you have to go in a hurry or just walking around. You're going through a building around the side, and they hear that. They're going to know you're coming. So I wasn't too upset that this came off. But you can see what it's held on by is literally just a little screw right here. The screw was not all the way in. At the factory, when they put this on, they probably didn't fasten the screw properly. It was just probably sitting at the very edge, and when I touched it, it loosened it, and it came right out. This is just to sit in the frame of the gun. Nothing holds this end in place, and this end is just this tiny, tiny little screw. So it's not going to hold any weight, so I wouldn't recommend you attach anything to this at all. See, I just dropped the screw, so I'll have to look for that later, but it's not that big of a deal. I mentioned I don't particularly care. Getting the screw was a little more difficult. I had to, when the saddle mount fell off, I had to actually get a pair of tweezers and locate the screw, which sits right inside here next to the hammer, and I had to get tweezers and work the screw out and loose so it wouldn't fall into the gun and mess up any of the inner workings of it. That's something I don't want to do, is mess up the gun and ruin my chances of using it. The other thing I found was, it seems like they did lower FPS. I know the earlier versions of the gun, and even an e-bike, they mentioned it goes up to 530 feet per second. I don't have a chrono. That's something I'm hoping to fix over the winter, but going by the speed of the BB and the distance and range going, it looks more like it is within the mid to lower 400s right now. And the booklet, the pamphlet that came with inside the gun, even rates it at 410 feet per second. So my guess is, even going by the early ones, like Jarek had his, he showed how when the hammer came down, it hit so hard that the lever actually came off the gun. You could see hammer was hitting very hard on the gun. This one doesn't hit so hard anymore. I'll even show you pull the trigger once. It doesn't hit as hard as the earlier models do. That leads me to think they actually put in a softer spring. The spring actually sits right here with the trigger mechanism that controls the hammer. So they probably put in a softer spring, which will lower the FPS. And that may be a good thing, a bad thing, depending on you look at it. To me, it's a good thing. I was only hoping for around 450 feet per second, maximum 470 within that range. And it looks like it's shooting within the 410 to 440 range, going by what I was able to at least observe with my own eyes. So I'm actually quite happy about that. That's a decent feet per second for a long-range gun in Airsoft. It will get out there. It'll still hit your targets. And it won't be so strong that you can't use it on a field. Like I mentioned, I am going to eventually chrono it properly. And when that happens, I will post the results. But we will see how long it'll be until I get a chance to do that. So, well, once I do that, though, I will post those as post the results of the chrono as an update on the video itself. With that being said, it also made me realize that a lot of the guys were talking about in early versions having used .40s, .43s, .36 BBs just to keep it from veering out. And when I started using BBs, I actually have 4 back here. I'm going to talk about the results of each one I used. I found that the .30s were working, but they were really cutting down the range a bit, which also leads me to believe that it is within now, that the range is within the lower 400s. And again, I'm actually happy about that. If you want to make it a little stronger, I may make it a little stronger, get a stronger spring. And again, the gentleman who shows how to change the seals here also has a video. He shows how to take off the trigger mechanism and without taking the whole gun apart, and you can see where the spring is. It sits back over here. You put a lighter or heavier spring as you need to, which will control the amount of gas that's released and lower or raise the FPS. So I may or may not put in a slightly heavier spring, but a lighter spring also helps extend the life of the trigger system with less chance of anything breaking, at least not for a while. It also, again, allows me to use it at more options, different feels, without being too powerful, too hot. So it does open up more options. Now, when I used right here, I'll pull them over, the .30s, PSBP, they were actually getting, they were shooting straight. They were getting decent range within the 50, 60 yard range, and then they started dropping off from there. So that I noticed that means that it probably was lower than the 500 plus FPS that it actually advertises. So again, I'm happy about that. Some of the people might not be, but again, if you're not happy, and I saw some complaints on when I was buying it, just increase the spring pressure here, and you'll get the FPS you want. But just know that when you increase spring pressure, you're more likely going to break the trigger sear over here. So I would suggest taking it out now and having a couple made to make it easier for you to replace when you're in the field, so you not have to spend a day without a gun or having to leave early. These are actually pretty straight, so then I went down and I thought, well, let me try the .25s. I have ISC and Lancer Tactical .25s. Sorry, ICS, not ISC. Now, the ICS, I had a few problems with in this gun. They tended to want to go kind of weird directions. The surprisingly Lancer Tactical ones were the most consistent as far as shooting straight, and they actually shot further than the ICS ones. I was able to get probably about 15 more yards out of the Lancer Tactical one than I was out of the ICS. So that's probably about the ones I'm going to end up going with, is the .25 Lancer Tactical. I also tried the .20. This is classic Army BBs. I'd gotten one going to a special event. They handed them out if you won the first so many people to sign up. And I fired them, and I'll be damned, I don't know where they went. I could see them. They went way out there. I'm sure they went further than any of the other BBs, but I lost track of them pretty quickly because they were just going too far, too quick. And they were just gone, especially with the Hopup. I had already set up for the .25s and .30s. The .20s, they had a point, and they just went way up, and I lost track of them in the sky. So that was the end of that. So far, the Lancer Tactical .25s have worked the best out of this gun. that I've shot so far. If I ever increase the spring pressure, yeah, I'll go to 0.30s, maybe 0.32s, but as it sits right now, the 0.25s actually worked the best, the most consistent and the straightest. And for some reason, these 0.25s shot further than those 0.25s. You can see there, these actually had a little bit less of a range than this one did here. I'll show you the front of the bag instead of the back. These gave me a measure of about 10-15 more yards than these did. And then once I raised the rear sight up and fired them, yeah, I was able to get pretty good range, because of course then the gun's a little elevated, and I was able to get them really out there. So that being said, so far I'm actually quite impressed with it. We'll see when we get to field it and get to do some more target shooting, but it is pretty consistent. Even with the range, they all fell within a general area. They weren't, mostly until the gas started dying down, they were generally in the same area. They weren't, one was 50 yards, one was 40 yards, one was 80 yards. They were in the same range. So if you're shooting at somebody, there's a good chance you're going to hit them. And that's something I was really looking for just a basic, I guess, sniper rifle. I didn't want to go all out like some of you guys do and spend a small fortune on a toy gun to make it more accurate. This has been pretty good so far, and with having a lower FPS, I'm certainly going to end up adding a Type 4 barrel, which of course will add the FPS and probably better bucking in there to add some more accuracy and range. And then we'll definitely have a really great gun, especially fieldable. And what's great about this is that just the speed in which you can fire, and great for follow-up shots if you're going for long range. So if you miss your first one, it won't take you but a second to get the second one off, which is a great advantage when you're on the field, someone's moving around. Now with that being said, I hope this was helpful, and thank you guys for watching, and have a wonderful day.